Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the NTC Handshake Webinar. We're so excited that all of you are able to join us today. As a lot of you know, if you're part of the NTC community, we've been having a year-long discussion on the value of internships, how to start an internship, how to expand your internship. And now we're going to talk about how do you access the 9 million students on this Handshake platform. And this might be something that you want to explore as a tactic for bringing in talent into your own companies. So welcome. We're so excited that you're here. So Maura, can I have you switch to the next slide, please? So as you know, if you're not familiar with the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, we are an exurban workforce initiative based here in Omaha, Nebraska. We are statewide. What makes us extremely special is that our ability to connect and convene leaders from across business and government, education, and not-for-profits to find ways to meet the challenges that we're all facing and developing, attracting, retaining not only talent, but entrepreneurs and small business. Those of you that have been a part of the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, we rally under this banner of these 4 big goals. How do we grow our tech workforce by 10,000 workers by 2025? And internships could be a tactic in order to do that. How do we, of those 10,000 new tech workers, there's no reason why they shouldn't be 40% women and 20% from underrepresented groups. And we as a state need to figure out additional ways to lean into that. And again, when selecting interns, what COVID has demonstrated to all of us that you don't have to be here in Nebraska to have an incredible experience with a Nebraska company. 300 new startups over the next 5 years. The only way we're going to grow as a state or attract people to the state is show that there's cool stuff going on here. We've cornered the market in ag tech, fintech, but we're really strong leaders when it comes to sports tech coming out of Lincoln and Omaha. And then finally, raising Nebraska's tech profile. How do we let people know that this is an incredible place, not only to live and raise a family, but an incredible place to start a business, grow a business, scale a business. And so that's kind of how we've come together here at the NTC. We're going to ask a poll question. So how many of your organizations are currently on Handshake? So if you could just answer this question for us real quick, this might give Ben and others, kind of where the landscape where we are and the folks that are on this call today. So go ahead and launch that poll. So about half. So half the folks are on Handshake, half aren't on the Handshake. So everybody would like to introduce you to Ben Gluck. He's the head of employee partnerships for Handshake. He's going to be leading our discussion today. So Ben, welcome. This is everybody from the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, and we hope that you enjoy your time with us.
Fantastic, and it's great to be here today, and thank you all so much for having me. And we'll start over at the top just to provide some additional context around Handshake as a whole, how we interact directly with universities, and how you can start using Handshake to attract students for internships, attract students within the states, within the state of Nebraska, and also attract students from out of the state of Nebraska that ultimately are considering and thinking about moving back. Maybe they've been there maybe they've lived there previously, or maybe they see the economic opportunity and want to be able to join a growing company within state. Next slide, please. So starting at the very top, our purpose exists to provide more equality and opportunity to students across the country, and as well, more opportunity for employers to help drive their recruiting initiatives and help build a more diverse and well-rounded organization. Originally, Handshake was actually started by 3 gentlemen who went to school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan at Michigan Tech, found that though there was qualified students all across the country, based on constrictions in the way that organizations could recruit students by having to go have a physical presence on campus, attend career fairs, and ultimately travel, opportunity wasn't evenly distributed. So within those pieces, they ended up creating this Handshake as we see it today, which basically syndicates all universities that we're partnered with that utilize us on campus as their official software for their career centers, and ties it together into one easy network that you can then use to post to any number of the roughly 1,400 different universities that we're currently partnered with. Next slide, please. So within that, just in the way in which our network interacts and operates. So we power everything career related on the campuses that use us as their software. So if students want to go in and register for some time to get career advising from their counselor, they want to be able to register for the career fair, see what companies are specifically recruiting on their campus, they go into Handshake, and they're directed by the professors, organizations, and their career center. As well, on each of these campuses that partner with us, every student within the student body is given a Handshake account from the moment they start over at that school. Typically, they'll build them out during their freshman orientation, but we'll also actively use them and build them out further throughout their college career as they start taking on additional either part-time jobs, organizational involvements, internships, et cetera. And so in combining all of these different universities together, previously, if you wanted to recruit at 13 different schools, you would have to have 13 different logins to access each and every one of them, to post a job, register for the career fair, et cetera. Now we've been able to make it very simple, where in one place, you can expand to, with just a couple of clicks, either all the schools in Nebraska, schools in neighboring states, or even universities across the entire country. And so from this, it makes it a little bit easier to be able to post more positions, research more events that the universities are hosting, and even host your own events to start engaging students and telling them the story that we heard earlier today of why they should start coming to Nebraska and start thinking of Nebraska as a fantastic place to build out and start their career in tech. Next slide, please. And so within this, we've been growing exponentially over the course of the last couple of years. Right now, one of the big focuses is not only just addressing the remaining four-year institutions that don't currently utilize Handshake, but as well also growing into the two-year space in community colleges and serving those communities. Outside of that, if Students University is not officially partnered with us, those students can still create a Handshake account, and you can still actively recruit them through the Handshake Open Network. All they need is a .edu email address, and they can register on Handshake and fill out all their information accordingly. And so what this means ultimately for the institutions and our partnerships there is we have very, very strong partnerships directly with the universities. So not only just empowering their career centers, but helping expose them to brand new opportunities and companies that previously haven't been able to recruit there before. They will help advertise and advocate as Handshake as a way to primarily connect directly with new companies and work directly with their students in order to make sure their profiles are built out, they're utilizing the platform properly, and use it as basically their one-stop shop or source of truth for anything career related. So among students, we have very strong brand recognition in which they're consistently using Handshake, at least at the very beginning, to start their career journey, and then they'll consecutively utilize and lean on the platform more and more as they get closer to that junior year, that senior year, when activity for their job search process is a lot heavier. And so within this, just to reiterate, we have very strong partnerships with all of our EDU partners that aren't necessarily going anywhere anytime soon. And so from that point, since we have such a large volume of jobs, 500,000 different employers that students can start researching and connecting with, based on survey data that we've been seeing, Handshake attributes for a majority of where 2018 and 2020 grads have said that they actually found their first job or internship. So this can be a great starting point, at the very least, to be able to get a presence on campus and make more students aware, even if you don't have the bandwidth to be able to go to those schools, or if you're curious about investigating universities outside of Nebraska. And so ultimately on this, 3 different areas that we are able to really help support organizations on. So one of which is just increasing your reach. We can increase the bandwidth of your team or the ability to recruit at other universities you previously wouldn't have considered before, because we make it very easy to be able to, at the very least, get a presence on those campuses virtually. Beyond that, and similar to what John has said earlier, a lot of this piece around telling this story to students from both within state as well as out of state starts with building relationships and a long-term process of saying, hey, I know you may have considered previously, much like everybody else, that California is the only place that you could be able to build a career in tech. But let me explain to you a couple of the reasons why Nebraska specifically is becoming a very, very large growing market for your field. And then you can start building longer term relationships with them, not only just meeting them at a career fair, but hosting specific events relating to what a day in the life of an engineer over within your organization may look like, what a career within your organization can look like long term, and ultimately what those benefits look like. So beyond just simply getting a posting out there, we're helping organizations build these long term relationships that realistically Ideally, we want them to stem from freshman year and build and grow over the course of the 4 years that they're at school. And beyond there, just help organizations with helping lower their overall cost per hire, speed up the time to be able to hire, and find a more diverse range of individuals they can recruit from, whether those are going to be students attending minority serving institutions, students belonging to organizations that serve underrepresented groups at individual colleges within or outside of their states, or just students from a different train of thought that are not attending the universities that an organization typically will recruit from. And from there, I believe that's all the slides that we have on here, but would love to take you all through the platform, familiarize you a little bit more, not only just the student experience, but also what the employer experience is and what your capabilities would be. We're logged into Handshake right now on the demo side, currently looking at what a student's experience, a student's profile would be. So typically what a student will end up seeing when they're logging into Handshake is more or less kind of a Netflix for jobs sort of feed of companies, jobs, and events and opportunities relating to many of their interests. I'll show you the different types of fields that they can actually fill out on here. But just first and foremost, if you haven't started posting any positions on Handshake, this is a way that they would start, students would start seeing them. So they'll be able to see different individual sessions that they can actually register for with members of your team that are blocked out this week or for upcoming events. So they can schedule one-on-one times to chat, maybe either with a recruiter or member of the engineering team, to discuss what opportunities in your organization look like and what a day in the life for them looks like. We also funnel to them jobs and positions recommended based on their previous activity. So if they were applying to similar types of positions in similar locations, roles that are recommended based on their major. And as well, it's not showing on here, but students will also indicate what states that or cities that they're interested in moving to post-graduation, and we'll show them content that way. So this is where we do encourage employers to grow the base in which they're currently, or the university base in which they're currently posting or have a presence at, because it's very common. Most students will end up going to school outside of their hometown, and then they'll look for a job outside the city where they went to school. So if you have content out there and you have positions that are posted both within or out of state, if someone's interested in relocating back to, let's say, Omaha as an example, if you have content posted there, they do have a chance to be able to see that. And so looking at the type of content, like students will utilize their profile similarly to like an online resume. And just using this as like the demo profile as an example, their educational information that's uploaded there by the university and validated by the university. So everything from their major, which school they're going to, program, their GPA, that's all being relayed to us actively by their registrar's office. As well, they'll include in any other type of information you typically would expect to see from either a LinkedIn profile or an online resume, such as work experience, volunteer experience, membership and leadership experience within organizations, as well as coursework and projects they've worked on. Some of these other pieces, though, that dictate what type of content those students will end up seeing is what their relative interests are. So having jobs that are posted up as internships when students are currently looking for internships, they have a chance to be able to see that when your roles are posted over on their schools, as well as which cities that they're planning on relocating to. So again, just to reiterate that point, if you're looking for talent and we want to be able to bring more talent back into more technical talent into Nebraska from outside, as well as also retaining, having a presence and a wide enough presence offers you the opportunity to find hidden talent that maybe you haven't considered beforehand, and they'll actually see your content as a result of some of the components that you're putting into those postings. And as well, roles or relative interests. So those students that are interested in like the technology sector have a chance to see roles relating to that within specific organizations. Beyond this point, let me switch over to what the employer side would look like. This is what you would have access to right now. So if you were to create an account, for those of you that haven't used it before, for those of you that have, this may look familiar. You're able to do effectively 3 or 4 different things. So one of which is you can post jobs out to any universities out on Handshake. You can actually search specifically for schools based on either regions around the country, based on current location. So we can either dot the map with surrounding states surrounding Nebraska, or even look for high ranking universities across the country based on national rankings. And with a click, where this pending line would be, you'd be able to request permission to start posting positions and having a presence over on those campuses. Within that, whenever you're creating a job, you can indicate which different universities you want that job to be posted to. So anything from, and the process for it is pretty seamless and streamlined for any applicant tracking systems that you have. You want applications in your internal system, you can have them funneled directly onto there, or have all of your applications sitting on Handshake. But similar to posting positions elsewhere, you can include in any applicable information on here, and as well leave yourself open to speak with interested candidates. So effectively saying, you want to have your profile visible so that if a student finds this role in their feed, they have the opportunity to either message you directly or even schedule a virtual chat with you based on your availability to have a quick 10-15-minute conversation about the role where you're able to tell the story of why your organization is going to be the best choice for them and why your location is going to be the ideal place for them to settle down. And there's no limitation on the number of jobs you can post or the number of universities that you could start recruiting at. So that's one recommendation that we have, or one way that we could help impact specific to internships, is having those roles posted up, selecting specific internships, having the content created relevant to a student's interests so they could show up in their feed within their university. If you're not connected with their school, they don't have an opportunity to be able to see it. Additionally, you can research other career fairs that are going to be upcoming. So again, those are only to those universities that you're actively connected with, but we could see open registration for fairs for the spring. You can investigate which other brands are also attending those specific fairs, and then also register and set up time slots. And what I mean by that is, if you're registering for a fair on Handshake, if it's in person, you show up on the day of, and it's very similar to previous fairs that you've attended. Otherwise, we do also facilitate virtual career fairs for those universities that are electing to have virtual fairs. Within those, you'll set up a 30-minute info set or larger group session where we can project out a lot of commonly asked questions or information that you want all students to know of, while also setting up 10-minute chats, similar or just to simulate the experience of a student walking up to your booth, asking you a series of questions and wanting to learn more about the position itself and wanting to learn more about your organization. Additionally, you do have the flexibility or the ability to also host either events on campus or virtual events to any of the schools that you're connected with. For those, if you have Zoom, if you have Microsoft Teams or another video hosting platform, it's a very simple, seamless process to request an event where you can set it as a virtual event, allow students to be able to register on here, pop in the link there, and then similarly to what we looked at earlier for the students' feeds, they'll be able to see companies and then events that are relevant to their interests popping up in there for them to be able to register for. Purpose for these would be to, especially with so many different opportunities in front of students, and not necessarily every student knowing A, where they want to live post-grad, B, what type of company or size of company they want to work in, C, ultimately what subset of their major or typical careers that their major funnels into that they ultimately want to go into. So this is your opportunity to build one of those long-term relationships of, first and foremost, getting information out there to entice students to your individual brands, to Nebraska, and to opportunities that you have to offer, but also start kind of creating the beginning or like the spark point for that relationship so you can nurture it, build, and stay in communication with them, even if they're not currently qualified for a role, if they're too early on in their college career. Additionally, as another point, what you're also able to do is you can message students individually. Each employer has up to 100 messages that they could send to proactively source for candidates that haven't actually applied to their roles yet. You can filter and source based on either keywords in their profiles, universities that they're currently attending, what their current school year is, and then also GPA. So we want to be able, as well as major. So if we want to be able to look into which students in computer science that are currently attending any of the top 5 schools that you want to recruit from that haven't actually engaged with you previously, you can reach out to them, tell them that you have an event going on campus, tell them that you're going to be attending a career fair on their campus within the next 2 weeks, or ask if they would be interested in setting up time to chat further with you about opportunities related to their major and related to their field. So ultimately, a lot of the different types of pieces that you're able to do on Handshake currently is a lot of it more or less built around kind of like an inbound strategy where we can put and easily get content and get your brand and get your profile out towards new universities, have content related to students' interests out there in the field, and ultimately more or less widen the net for what the addressable audience of technical candidates that you can start recruiting is starting right now. There are other components in which we do help employers just from a proactive approach, in which what you'd effectively be able to do is build a target segment of students that you want to reach out to, such as we want to find all the computer science students. And I can show you an example of what that would look like right now. We want to see it build out like a segment of, we want to see all the computer science students that are graduating this year or graduating next year across the country that are on the platform, that have a location preference set on their profile actually, and we'll just use the entire state of Nebraska as an example, that may not actually currently be attending school in state, but are explicitly saying, hey, I'm planning on relocating to Omaha, or I'm planning on relocating to Nebraska City or another city in state. And you can start, you can save this group, reach out to them en masse, and draw attention either to open positions, any of the events that you're also going to be hosting, or any other type of content that you'd like them to start engaging with. One thing that we're seeing that is very effective for organizations is in attracting new talent is stepping away from the traditional model of only recruiting during basically fall and spring season, where we see a lot of organizations are relying solely on like the pre-designated career fair schedule, thinking, okay, this is when most students are actively looking for a job, and this is when I'm going to see the best sort of results. What we see typically is organizations who are effectively running a year-round sort of recruiting cycle, where they're starting to engage with students that are, let's say, sophomores going into their junior year. They have an internship that they're recruiting for that only starts their junior year. They'll start reaching out to them during the summer before that student's junior year starts, and start introducing themselves to their brand, start telling their story early enough on, having them apply, and even move through the process either prior to the start of that junior year or during the fall prior to the career fair season. Ultimately, as a way, since right now, across all industries and across all states, it's extraordinarily competitive in order to find qualified talent, especially qualified technical talent. We're seeing that the best sort of ways to start differentiating yourselves from like those, I guess, typical tech hubs is by getting your story to them sooner and telling it impactfully and frequently. Perfect. And so now I've got I believe about 6 minutes left. I can showcase what you can do or how we can reach out to students a little bit more effectively on here. Once we have like a saved group of students that we want to reach out to, and let's say we have that group of 2,100 that you want to connect with, you can either reach out to them one at a time, similarly to what we just saw for the free platform where you're looking at individual profiles, or you can create basically a campaign designated towards them for a specific purpose. So career fair that you're going to, you create a segment specific to that university. You want to reach out to all the candidates at that school relevant to your jobs. And you want to make sure that when you do show up to campus, you have a line of students at your booth or a virtual line at your virtual booth that you know exactly who you're speaking with ahead of time for any of the events that you're curating over the summer or right after the holidays. We have a whole list of RSVPs of candidates that we know are going to potentially be a great fit, and we just need to entice them or to an open position. And so if we're creating this for like a spring info session, we select the group of students that we want to reach out to, tailor the size of the audience, and then your recruiting team's able to send them all content or messages that they schedule out in advance, just to simplify the outreach process. If we want to send this out, let's say tomorrow at 10:10 in the morning. And then they can save and insert templates relating to the entire audience with variables that are changed based on the student's name, their school, and their major. This is a way as gaining a competitive advantage versus other traditional tech companies that are out of state. It's a way of getting in touch and to students ahead of time. Ultimately, not every student wants to work at either like FANG companies or some of the largest organizations in the world, being a smaller fish in a bigger pond. What we're seeing right now is that most students outside beyond pay, they want to see career growth. They want to see impact. They want to see value in the work that they're doing every day. And we're seeing a huge shift in which students are applying to a diverse set of different organizations across the entire country. So it is very much possible, remaining competitive and being able to attract candidates from out of state to come in state into Nebraska, as well as making sure that those that are currently in state are staying in state. It all starts with the ability to first and foremost get connected with them early enough on and build that relationship out long term. Perfect. Nice. Do you see a couple different questions within the chat? Happy to address those. For the most part, that's a larger portion of what I have planned, at least for the walkthrough of the platform and familiarizing everybody with Handshake. If there are additional questions or other pieces that we do want to double click on or go back to, I'm happy to.
No, so Ben, thank you so much. I think this was a really great overview of the platform. We do have a series of questions in the chat, but I'm actually going to start with actually, you know what, I'm going to do the chat first, and then I'm going to ask my big loaded question to you. But one of the first questions we have is from Todd Johnson. He wrote, "Love it. Are high school and secondary schools in your expansion roadmap?"
Not currently. Right now, our main priority is first and foremost deepening connections with four-year institutions. We're currently expanding out into the UK as well as two-year schools. There's a large market that we're addressing there. It may be on the expansion roadmap in the deep future, but currently not in the immediate one.
Okay. Another question is, I understand that the focus is on college students, but how about senior let positions? How can past students use the site? And I think you will have a time frame that graduates can use the site as long as they have that EDU email address, if I'm correct.
You are. So actually,
okay.
When students are getting close to graduation, we will prompt them to include in like switch to their personal email address. There's no limitation on the time period for when students can actually end up, they'll like lose access. So we actually do have a population. I think it's about 3 million at this point, students or recent graduates with between 1 to 7 years of experience, because that's as long as we've been serving universities. And those range from anywhere from bachelor's graduates all the way up to PhD graduates, because typically with most relationships we have with universities, when we do partner with them, it's the entire student body that's uploaded onto Handshake. So everything from first-time freshmen all the way up to PhD students.
That's awesome. We have another question from Sue. Corporate HR employees that have accounts, or do hiring managers need accounts on Handshake? Is it a corporate account and HR manages the access? So the question, it sounds like the question goes around, like, how do corporate HR managers or those employees access those accounts? And how should hiring managers access those accounts?
So there's a few different types of I guess profile types with different permissions. Typically, like the main user type is called a recruiter, just as a catch-all. Hiring managers will use that. Members of the HR talent acquisition team will use that. It's up to the organization to identify internally how best to kind of police that, so there's not a situation of too many cooks in the kitchen. But we have seen it is pretty common practice that, especially if a team is recruiting heavily or a manager has a high priority position, they do have the opportunity to create an account to post any roles for their specific teams. But typically, what we do see for most organizations is that they'll have the HR talent acquisition team primarily police that or manage the entire account. Similarly, for like events, like if have like an upcoming career fair and you want to have individuals on board, but don't want them to have the ability to post jobs or post their own different type of content on your profile, there's a representative account where what they're able to do is basically just attend events. So most people will have those as like ambassadors, members of different teams, let's say engineers that are going onto campus to talk to other prospective engineers. They'll give them those accounts so then they can register and attend those events.
That's great. And then is there a mechanism on your platform that you all track? So somebody goes through this entire Handshake process. Do the employers have to go back and check a box saying we hired somebody, or is that kind of once that you've made the connection, are you out? So
that portion of it, employers,
I guess, can you track if people got jobs or not?
Yes, there's a couple different ways. So one of which, if employers are using the system, they can elect whether or not they hired people. We also power the destination surveys that students are filling out during their senior year across all universities. And so that's primarily one of the main mechanisms that we use to track whether or not students are getting jobs by the time that they're leaving, the routes in which they've taken in order to get those jobs is by powering that for a majority of universities across the country. So long answer short, some of it is taken from employers' self-reported data. Large portion of it is data that's also collected by the university and reported.
Yeah, something you all should think about is actually putting out a state report on how certain locales are doing with the people that use your platform. I think that would be a really helpful tool for states to understand, are they getting people to come to their states, or to work in the companies in their states. So just something to think about. Another question from Sue: does an employer provide a link for the student to apply for a position, or is there any integration between Handshake and popular HR recruiting software that companies would use, Workday, SuccessFactors, et cetera?
Yes, so there's two different ways. So on the free platform, you can elect, like whenever you're having a student, whenever you're posting a position, you have two different options for how the student applies. They either apply in Handshake, it's a one-click apply process, but the resume is primarily sitting there, or you can put in a URL for the complimentary job in your HRS or ATS system. So if you're using Workday, you just put the Workday link to start the application process there. And then whenever a student sees the job on Handshake, they read the description, they're interested, and they click apply. When they click apply, it immediately sends them over there, somewhat similarly to Indeed. So then they'll fill out all of your application information on your system. We will still track who those individuals are, and you'll see them listed as like applicants in your Handshake job posting, so that you can cross-reference to see who dropped out in the process and didn't apply. For specific ATS systems like Workday, Greenhouse, then we're finalizing another one for iSIMS. We do have full integrations for Handshake Premium, where basically would create the exact same situation of like a one-click apply process. A student thinks they're applying on Handshake, but it creates an entire profile of them in your Workday or Greenhouse system.
Wow. Well, that sounds great. Another question: you said we get 100 messages to reach out to candidates. In what set time frame? 100 messages per position, or 100 messages per month or year?
And thank you for that clarification. So it's 100 messages per semester to students who have not either messaged you directly, registered for any events, or applied to a job. So basically be net new people.
And that's the free account, correct?
Correct.
That's the free account. Okay, sorry, continue.
And the semesters run from January to June and then July to December. So if you create an account right now, you can message 100 students, and then it's the 8th right now. So then in about 23 days, I'm losing track of time. And then in about 23 days, you'll get another 100 messages.
Okay, that's great. Another question from Art: can you please confirm if two-year schools are currently eligible to become a Handshake education partner?
They are. We have several hundred in the platform now. I think it's about between 200 to 300. I think might have to check on those numbers just to confirm, but they are currently eligible. If you utilize the platform, you like Handshake, and you want any local community colleges within your area to start using Handshake, you can either recommend them to myself or to our team, or tell that to the community colleges that you're currently working with as a recommendation of, hey, you should check out this if you're in the market to look up a different type of career center platform.
So again, we are a statewide organization, and our sole mission is to attract, develop, and retain tech talent and entrepreneurs in the state. Is there any mechanism or future plans for trade organizations to be able to run statewide campaigns around Handshake? And the reason I ask that is because we have a lot of smaller members who are scaling. They're not the large companies. They don't have big departments of people who are looking at trying to leverage more data around Handshake and around these tools. And so could a trade association take on that role for some of our smaller members?
I'd have to check with our team just around regulations on like recruiting for different organizations versus like just basically advertising for opportunities for the state at large. I think that we may in the past have worked with larger membership organizations, but we're primarily geared towards educating students within a specific about opportunities in a specific field versus recruiting secondarily for other individuals or other individual members of the organization. But I'll have to check on that.
Great. Well, again, I think we might have got you some business from some of the community colleges, so keep an eye out for some of our friends from there, and we'll get you folks connected to Ben in our follow-up email with all of his contact information, if that's something that you're looking at. So how do you recommend, again, we have some incredible members who are really utilizing your platform and your system, but kind of how can we help our smaller members who are doing some really exciting and creative things in tech here in the state to find talent? They're competing with these large companies. How do they compete for talent on your platform?
First and foremost, it would just be having a presence just to start off with. So first, having a presence across Nebraska, but then largely having a presence at more universities in neighboring states. If you're not visible to those universities, to those students, like there's tens of thousands of different companies that do recruit at each school on Handshake because it is a lot easier. But again, some of the content that's on the platform is sent to students based on relevancy to their interests. So if you have a presence and it doesn't take that long to be able to at least create one by having jobs posted out there, and that portion is entirely free to do. So that's a good starting point, is just widening the net, because again, students across the country are planning on relocating all over the country. San Francisco is extraordinarily expensive. I just moved to Lake Tahoe from there, and I can personally say it's insanely expensive down there compared to pretty much anywhere else. And based on like anxieties around paying off student loans and as well the job market at large, there's still large cities, larger like tech hub cities are still seeing a lot of individuals moving there, but also with the advent of remote work, not necessarily everybody wants to move directly there and pay exorbitant prices. So within that, expanding your reach, having a wider presence just to start off with is a good starting point. Secondarily, any sort of events that your organization hosts, having like a panel of different individuals from other member organizations describing what their opportunities look like, career growth, and having that broadcasted to universities would be another great approach to at least get a little bit more awareness out there and also give you a voice to start speaking directly to students.
Okay, that's great. So again, one thing I'm going to say is if you have questions, please put them in the question and answer feature here on Zoom, and we will take those as they come in. I'm going to ask one, Amy had a follow-up question on the community college side. What is the cost for community colleges to join Handshake?
That I don't have as much visibility into. I am more than happy to connect you over with we have a separate team that handles educational institutions. I primarily work with employers and companies, but more than happy to connect you with the appropriate people there.
And so what we'll do, Amy, just to let you know, again, in our follow-up communication to everybody who've participated on this webinar, we'll make sure that we get you Ben's contact information or whoever he designates on that side and get that information out to you. You as well, we'll get that information out to you at the conclusion of this webinar. So one of the things that we really lean into here at the Nebraska Tech Collaborative is our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. We want more women in this space. We want more people of color in this space. You talked about some sorting functions on who you can kind of get in front of as you put your list together or you're sorting for this platform. Is there a mechanism to sort to get more women and people of color into your into your universe as you're looking for talent?
There is. Primarily it would be over on the Handshake Premium side. So one way that you can be able to do it on the free side is if you connect either with HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, or women serving colleges to once again at least get some content out there and get a presence on those campuses. Alternatively, and I can show you an example of what this would look like just to take screen share for one quick second.
That'd be great.
Some of the different filters on here. So for premium, it includes everything from school, major, grad year, organizations, interests, achievements, accolades, locations, jobs, coursework, but then as well, most of our employer partners who are using Handshake in order to drive their diversity initiatives are leaning on these pieces. So we collect
And that's
data.
in the premium function, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So whether or not students have self-identified or elected to self-identify as any of these groups, whether or not they're a part of organizations that serve these groups. So like NSBE, SWE, or SHIP, you can either look for specific organizations above or filter down. And what a lot of companies will do is they'll create content specific to these orgs. If they have alumni from these organizations inside of their companies, to have like a panel or something along those lines as well, also using the platform to filter down based on institution type. So whether or not they are a part of one of those minority serving institutions, and then saving that as segments and then reaching out to them for events and conversations.
Again, I'm asking you a ton of loaded questions just because this is something of huge interest to us. So do you guys have any data on the backside of what that conversion rate is? You know, as companies are reaching in and using these features, are they truly getting the diversity that they want or they're seeking in order to come to their companies, or is it defaulting back to the usual norms? And do you guys have any data around that?
We are seeing an increase in so for those organizations that specifically use us for DEI, we are seeing an increase. Like I can share a couple of different case studies, but for some organizations, they've been able to increase their makeup of women engineering candidates by 10. They were at 45% previously, and then 55% 2 years later, based off of using this. So I believe that's about a 20% increase. Other organizations have been using it extensively. Just to start building relationships with like freshmen early on, and they've seen conversion rates years down the line increasing because they're basically able to get them to enter into their talent pipeline significantly earlier than anybody else. As far as like responsiveness to messages, since like 99% of college students are going to college to forward their career, and previously they haven't been able to be reached out to by employers. Since even thinking back to my days, I used to work in my alma mater's career center, and I would advise everybody about a decade ago, like LinkedIn was getting big, say, build a LinkedIn account. You need to have a LinkedIn account. Employers are looking for people with a LinkedIn account. And the number one thing that I heard then, and we actually had an all hands with our head of higher education, who shared the same sentiment, was shared by career center advisors, is, do I connect with my dad or my uncle? Like, I don't have a network. Who I don't know anybody right now. So since there has been that gap previously, based on whether or not students have had an existing network, now when you reach out to them, usually we see about a 60 to 70% message open or read rate. And then depending on the major, and then as well, just depending on how engaging the content is, and engagement rate. So that's whether or not they respond back to you. They're applying, they're investigating your brand, they're taking some sort of an action as a result of those messages, ranging between 10 to about 30%.
Again, last call for questions before we kind of close this out. Again, we want to keep this nice lunch and learn nice and tight, so everybody got the information that they needed. But again, Ben, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about, Handshake. We hope that, you'll come back again soon, and, maybe you guys have some data that you want to report that you could probably share with us that might be helpful for us. So I'm going to do another poll question, and then I'm going to talk some more. Last poll question. So after this presentation, do you think your organization is going to use Handshake? Okay, so it looks like you got some folks who are still unsure, but you got a lot of folks who have said, yeah, that this is something they're going to think about. So again, Ben, I can't thank you all enough. I know that I'm extremely hard on your platform, but again, as a statewide organization representing companies of all sizes, and our sole focus is to make sure that we keep the talent that's here in Nebraska, attract more talent in Nebraska, and retain the talent that we have here in Nebraska. And again, I think there's some huge upside to using a platform like this. So again, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And please feel free.
Yeah. And then you all can see, so if you need to get a hold, like most of you have my email, you're welcome to use that. If you're not a member of the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, contact@nebtechcollab.com, or there is Ben's contact information at Handshake. So you can talk to him directly if you're going to race off this call and get a hold of him. But again, we're excited that you all joined us for this. This internship discussion for the Nebraska Tech Collaborative has been going on for over a year, and how we attract and develop and retain students here. This means that we need to figure out how we help each other and move forward. So next slide. As all of you hear me, you guys hear me say this all the time. If you want to know what's going on in this ecosystem, share, like, and tweet what we are doing here at the Nebraska Tech Collaborative. If you're interested in becoming a partner of ours, we have some really great programming coming up next year on internships. And we've identified a number of areas of places that have a lot of tech interns that we can have access to. So if you're interested in being part of those discussions and those webinars, think about becoming a partner. And then finally, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. And we hope that everybody has a wonderful holiday. And again, Ben, we're so excited that we closed out the year learning more about what you do. But I'm sure we're going to be able to recruit you back next year to kind of talk to us about some other things as we move forward for recruiting season in the spring.
Love it. Thank you all so much.
Great. Thanks. Thanks everybody for joining us.